me about these commercials is what it's sending to our youth. What they must think of us adults. That's what bothers me the most.
It's a good point. I spoke this morning to the Wadsworth High School students, and I said to them, how many people have seen the commercials about me? All their hands went up. It's sad. But that's what we have to deal with. And you're right. So we can fix that. Again, we can all fix that. We need to send a message to John Butcher, and that message is no more. We're not sending you back. You didn't do right by us. And by the way, I don't like those commercials anymore. There's one thing we've been able to see in the polling is that John Butcher, nice guy attitude, and knocked a little bit tarnished because of all the bad, nasty ads. So people are starting to realize.
We have one more question, I think. Bert, you want?
Jim and I have been run this race for like last year, I think, and I started supporting him. But the one thing he's absolutely right is that it has been an increase in slam ads against you. And one of the questions I always get, and there's actually several people I can point to in the room have asked me this in the last month, is about the 23.5% national sales tax and the fact you don't pay your taxes. And once I explain it to people and give them the story behind it, then it's like, oh, okay, now I understand why that. I know you're rushed for time. Can you briefly tell us about that?
Here's the interesting thing. If I took you all on a bus today and drove you to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and put you in a hotel and put the TV on, you know the ads you'd see running? Tim Burns believes in a 23% sales tax increase. You can't vote for Tim Burns. Then I could take you in a bus, take you down to, I could probably take you to 50 different congressional districts, and you would hear the same commercial. The guy in Colorado, he believes in a 23% sales tax increase. All right, after a while you start to say, my parents still live in western Pennsylvania. They told me they hear that ad all the time. It's not Jim Renacci, it's Tim Burns. Here's what's going on in this country. And I'm going to tell you where the 23% came from. It's pretty simple. I stood in a room one time. It was at a debate, a primary debate. And it's kind of funny because if you look at the ad, Jim Renacci believes in a 23% sales tax. It has a little thing at the bottom that says that Canton debate, and it has a date, April 19th or whatever that was. That's where they're getting the information. That's on the computer. You can get that. If you go to that debate, what you're going to find is there was a question one time asked in that debate to all the candidates. Do you believe the tax system that currently has is complicated? This was my answer, yes. I'm a CPA, I believe it's complicated. In fact, I believe that sometimes the IRS agents have a tough time understanding it. Next question. What do you think of the fair tax? This was my answer. I think the fair tax is a good system, but I don't think it could ever be implemented. That's all I said. Now that's on tape. From that came an ad, Jim Renacci is going to tax you 23%. Now think about that. How did you get that? Well, here's what the answer is. How many people know what the fair tax system is? Fair tax system is a system, and I didn't even know it was 23%, quite frankly. It eliminates everything. It eliminates the IRS, eliminates all your Social Security taxes, everything. And it eliminates all taxes of all from scratch to finish whenever you produce a product. So the product's going to be cheaper normally. And then when you ultimately buy it, you pay a 23% sales tax on it. So ultimately, you're going to spend less for that chair, supposedly. But I do think it'd be difficult to implement. So how many people in this room believe when somebody says it's a good system, but I don't think it could ever be implemented, believes that I endorse the 23% sales tax now that you heard that? But that's what you get out of what's being run. The tax issue, I'll explain that too, because it's on the web, it's on the internet. I literally, with 1,000 other business owners, appealed a retroactive tax in 2002. And it was effective in 2000. And how did the state, it's kind of funny because these ads say Jim Renacci was found by the state and Jim Renacci was ordered to pay taxes. I wasn't ordered to pay anything. I settled after 2.5 years of a legal battle. Nobody ordered me to pay anything. But here's what it was. It was 1,000 of us. Actually, it was 3,000 business owners affected. But a couple of us decided we're going to fight it because the tax commissioner had a retroactive tax. So I disclosed everything just like I normally would on my corporate tax returns. But what the tax commissioner said was, oh, no. We want you to take that income and put it on your personal income tax return. Now, when did the tax commissioner, a bureaucrat, have the authority to do that? In my opinion, he still doesn't have the authority to do it. I believe that's in the legislative branch. But he made that decision, and we fought. I had already disclosed it over, and here's what's even more interesting. That year, the state of Ohio, on their tax return said, they put a little box on there. Do you have an ESPT trust? And if you do, what's the ownership of that ESPT trust? Because that's what it was, the ESPT trust. I checked off the box and said yes, and I said Jim Renacci, and I put all the income out there, 100% disclosed. So I told the state, and then 2 years later, they came to me and said, look, we think you should have done it the way the tax commissioner said. I disagreed. I fought it for 2 years. When the Supreme Court made a decision, and they disagreed with my opinion and 1,000 other business owners, I paid those taxes. So the answer is I paid my taxes 100% of the time. But the time somebody takes my right to appeal the tax, just like your right to appeal the tax, we got some serious problems. In Congress, I will always stand up for you when it comes to some stuff like that. But that's how simple that answer is. Did Jim Renacci pay his taxes? Absolutely. He'll probably pay more than he should have. But quite frankly, that's exactly what happened there. So when you see that Jim Renacci did not pay his taxes, think about that statement. Is that a lie? I mean, it depends on what you see the rest of the story. Jim Renacci did not pay his taxes because he fought him for 3 years under appeal, which is legal and okay. Put the rest of that in there, and then you see you can't run a commercial business. So that's the answer to that.
When I called on Bert, I think you had your hand up first.
Yeah.
So please answer.
Hey, I was just wondering, what do you feel about the term limits? It seems to me if we got some of the old boys out of Washington by law, it might be a softer, easier place down there.
Well, here's my feeling. Term limits, you already have term limits. The problem is you don't exercise them. The Founding Fathers did a very unique thing when they set up this Constitution and they set up our government. They said that Congress only serves 2 years. And they did that for a reason. They have a term limit of 2 years, and you should remove them. Now, shame on us if we let Mr. Bocelli go back, because it's our fault. And if we all went out and spend as much time as I spent, and I'm not asking you to do that, but I sure am asking you to do something the next 11 days, talk to 50 of your friends, because if you just do that, and everybody that I've talked to over this last year and a half talks to 50 of their friends, Mr. Bocelli is no way going back. And that's the term limit. The problem with true term limits is you lose gentlemen like, we have a great senator here who's term limited out. And that's not fair either. I was supportive of term limits in the state of Ohio until I see good guys like this have to be term limited out.
What do we do about the bad guys?
Vote them out. Vote them out.
If they're being voted on a different state, I don't see how.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But that's the answer. This is your district. You need to be able to respond to your district.
It's been great questions, and I think as I've over in my mind, recall the negative ads that's been ran against Jim, and I've had questions asked to me. I think Jim's had an opportunity with you, and this is why we wanted to have these meetings throughout our great county, is so you could hear from him directly what the allegations were, and that the allegations were absolutely false. In essence, there were lies conjured up by a number of professional people trained to twist the truth just enough to stay away from getting sued, and as a result, and it confuses lots of people. Thank the Lord that you had a chance to listen to Jim. I wish we could do this with everybody in the county. There'd be no doubt about it. So since we don't, you've had a chance to hear it. My honest prayer is that you will talk. Jim, you said lots. Did you say 50? I think you said 50. I don't want to limit you. I want you to talk to every person in our great county that you can. and say, you listen to Jim Renacci articulate and dispute each one of those negative ads that's been ran that have said lies about him. And the people that have been doing that don't have something they can run on positive. So they've got to try to say something. And as you leave, ma'am, I want to make sure I remind you that in Ohio, we have done away with corporate franchise tax, with tangible personal property tax, and we were trying to implement a 21% tax reduction across the board until our good governor decided to, the last year of that implementation, to take that away from us. But those things are happening, and so if you would, please talk to your friends. I know this guy. I know that he's not accountable. I know that you, Jim, and I, we can go to Washington. We can look him in the eye and say, now we've caught you in a lie. This is no television. You stood up and said this to us. We're going to hold you accountable. You talk about term limits, it's coming your way. Because I know Jim and I would campaign throughout this county and throughout this district to make sure he didn't get elected another term. I'm looking forward to campaigning in future years. If you keep electing me as chairman of the Republican Party in Nashville County, it's going to go along with Maryland. Maryland's got to be a part of it, and Bonnie's got to be a part of it. We're looking forward to electing him with your help to elect him this time. This guy knows what it is to make a payroll. He knows what it is to balance a budget. He can go to Washington and be accountable. And you know the great thing is that leadership is just like leadership that we have at the state. If you don't have the majority that you need to lead, it's awful hard to leverage people and say, you've got to vote the way I say, because you lose your majority. So the individual has got a pretty good leverage. When they come into him and say, this is the way you're going to vote, well, you know, I really don't need this job, as he told you, so I can go back home and do my thing and not catch up all those hours that I lost in days with my wife and with our children, and see what you can do without me. God bless all of you, and let's get Jim Renacci elected to the 16th District Congressional. We've got to get him elected. Thank you very much. And now we've got great fighters and great workers. And we've got to get Jim to Renacci.
I looked over and saw you here, so kind of shocked me. I said, whoa.